Just here to start talking about grief today. And I'm going to share a little bit of my story with the start of grief that I did experience when I was 17. Um, as you know, there's many different types of grief from many different types of loss. And so in my book, I actually walk through my life and the different types of grief do come out. And I believe that everything that I grieved for that caused my grief made me a stronger person, and that the Lord was making me ready to deal with the ultimate uh, loss of my child. So I am going to start reading here pretty quick. I do want to go over just obviously what kind of things can cause grief or loss. Um, the death of someone you love, the end of a relationship, a major health change, moving, the loss of a dream or a goal, and like personal injury. Like that one's going to probably come up like right now. But it wasn't to me personally, I experienced it in my dad. So I had to deal with a lot of stuff with him beginning at 17 years old. Um, Another kind is, a transition to a new stage in life. Um, and that type of thing is something that you adjust to. And you don't continue to grieve for that for the rest of your life, like retirement or graduation, um, or maybe having a baby, getting married. Those are different stages, but those uh, things don't typically cause um, a long-term effect of grief. So, um, without any further ado, I'm going to get started reading my book, and it's called Carried by the Cross. It has Jesus and Laughing with Gavin. I drew this on a while ago, so I'm going to get started. Okay, well, where do I begin? My life has been all over the emotional map. My faith has been tested and tried. For the reader's interest and the possibility of getting overwhelmed by tragedy, I will begin when I was 17 and in my senior year of high school. It was the morning of January 17th, 1995. I was just jumping into the shower to get ready for school. I heard a knock on the bathroom door and quickly wrapped myself up in a towel to answer the quick and hard knock. I opened the door to my mom, being very pale, who was shaking visibly. She told me that she just got off the phone with an emergency response crew member and said that my dad had been in a bad car accident. And they also said that he could not move his legs as they were flipped up over and backwards over the seat of the car when they found him. He was hanging upside down from his seatbelt. An interesting side note that I must mention is that my dad had not put on his seatbelt that morning, as he was in a freshly dry cleaned suit and was on his way to an interview. I know without a shadow of a doubt that God had intervened. I have to give credit and glory whenever it's due. I got dressed, and my mom and I started the long drive to the hospital downtown. My dad was being air flighted down because he had so many serious injuries that he would not survive the drive. Dallas traffic is horrendous any time of the day, but nearly impassable during rush hour. I never really understood rush hour traffic. No one is rushing anywhere. As we made our way down the road, we saw my dad's car being loaded onto the tow truck. It was it was pretty much pancaked um, beyond recognition to the normal passerby, but my mom and I knew. We were more fearful at that sight. We started singing praise and worship songs. This has always been a staple for my family to get us through any tough moment or just praise God. We all sang as a family in churches and other venues. God gave us this wonderful gift to be an instrument of healing throughout our lives. At this time, I only was just beginning to see how important it was. We sang Cast My Cares upon Him. He is the peace, and many other comforting songs. His peace entered the car and settled on us. We arrived at the hospital and they ushered us into a long hallway. This was the first of many hospital visits to come. The doctor came to prepare us for what we would see. He told my mom that my dad, could not be I'm sorry. Ah, he told my mom that my dad could be paralyzed from the waist down. He had a punctured lung, several broken ribs, and a broken pelvic bone, amongst many other injuries. My mom's legs went weak beneath her, and I helped her get to a nearby bed in the hallway. When we opened the door, we were greeted with a broken soldier, my dad. He was conscious, but still covered in glass and blood. My mom was on one side and I was on the other. My dad said over and over that he was sorry. They had to rush him into surgery to attempt to right the wrongs. During the extensive surgery, my brother was flown down from college. There was a massive amount of friends from the church that had gathered in the waiting room. They were praying and comforting us as best they could. I remember being so downtrodden that I laid flat on the floor, sobbing. As soon as my brother got there, I let go. I needed to be strong for my mom, as strong as a 17-year-old could be. After the surgery was over, the doctor came to talk to my mom. He told us that my dad most likely would never walk again. This was a harsh blow to our family. He was so active in basketball, running around the house, and not to mention how tall my dad was in stature, but life. We were faced with the reality that he would never again stand to give us a bear hug, and that the wrestling on the living room floor with all the tickling was over. That's the end of the first chapter. So, this type of grief doesn't get enough attention. Um, I know at 17 years old, I was I was sad for several years. Um, and I grieved heavily and I prayed for healing for my dad. But that just wasn't what God wanted to do. He wanted to use my dad. And my dad did go on to try, therapy, physical therapy to walk again. And he was actually doing it. He was in leg braces and arm crutches. And he did really well. But then he started having extreme nerve pain that would make him cry out in so much pain. And to this day, he still has it. Um, so I think the thing that I miss the most would be him being able to run around with us. And he was so he was so active, and he played basketball with us, and um, he he was tall. He was 6'4". And after that particular surgery, he was 6'5", even though he was in a wheelchair. No, not sitting down. No, not sitting down. But we got through those times, but I never received counseling for that, and my mom and my brother never received counseling. We were just strength for each other, and it took one day at a time. And my dad, the important part is that my dad was still the same person at that time. So he still was amazing to me, and it was a pillar of the community. People still revered my dad. So I'm gonna go on to read more in the next video of my book, and feel free to comment on this video and ask questions, or maybe put your email address down so I can talk to you. Um, like I said, I will be going over specifically the loss of my son Gavin, and how basically every single day from that day I see everything differently. I It's like a filter now, a filter of grief. Everything has to go through that filter. So I wanted to share that with you guys today, and um, I will see you in the next video. Please comment, subscribe. Love you guys. God bless.